Imagine working overtime for 15 years, saving every bonus, skipping vacations just so you could finally buy your dream beachfront property, only to have your HOA president show up at your door demanding you hand over your keys because they decided your vacation home should be available for community use. This is exactly what happened to Marcus Chen, and what came next exposed a shocking pattern of abuse that would shake this coastal community to its core. Quick note before we begin. This is a fictional, dramatized story for education and entertainment. Any resemblance to real people is coincidental. This story is inspired by common HOA situations people talk about online. All names and details here are fictional. Marcus Chen had dreamed of owning beachfront property since he was a kid watching the sunset with his parents during their rare family trips to the coast, and after 15 years of working as a software engineer, carefully investing, and living below his means, he finally purchased a modest 2-bedroom condo in Seaside Haven, a gated coastal community with pristine beaches and strict HOA regulations that he thoroughly reviewed before buying. The property cost him nearly $600,000, representing his entire life savings and a significant mortgage, but Marcus felt it was worth every penny when he received those keys and spent his first weekend watching dolphins from his private balcony. He visited the condo once or twice a month, sometimes staying for long weekends to work remotely with the ocean as his backdrop, and occasionally rented it through verified vacation platforms during peak season to help cover the mortgage and HOA fees, always ensuring renters followed community rules to the letter. For the first 8 months, everything seemed perfect. Marcus kept his unit immaculate, paid all fees early, participated in community cleanup days when he was in town, and even donated to the HOA's Beach Restoration Fund, building what he thought were positive relationships with neighbors and board members. Then came the February board meeting that Marcus couldn't attend because of a work deadline, and that's when HOA President Patricia proposed what she called the Community Access Initiative, a policy that would require all vacation homeowners who use their properties fewer than 15 days per month to make their units available for a community rental pool managed by the HOA, with proceeds going to community improvements after a 30% administrative fee. Marcus first learned about this proposal through a vaguely worded email that made it sound optional, so he politely declined, explaining that he used the property regularly and also rented it independently. But Patricia responded with a curt message stating that the board had already approved the policy and expected his compliance within 30 days. Confused and concerned, Marcus requested copies of the meeting minutes, the actual vote count, and the specific CC&R provisions that would allow such a requirement, but instead of receiving documentation, he got a hostile phone call from Patricia accusing him of being uncooperative and not a team player, suggesting that people who didn't support the community vision might find themselves facing fines and liens. Marcus immediately contacted a real estate attorney named Jennifer Okafor who specialized in HOA disputes, and after reviewing his documents, Jennifer's face grew serious as she explained that not only was the so-called policy completely unenforceable and possibly illegal, but the board meeting where it was approved didn't even meet quorum requirements according to the community's own bylaws. Armed with this information, Marcus sent a formal letter to the HOA board explaining that he would not be participating in their rental pool program, citing both legal counsel and the specific CC&R sections that protected his property rights, and he assumed that would be the end of it, but he was wrong. 2 weeks later, Marcus drove down to the condo for a relaxing long weekend and found a new lock on his door that his key wouldn't open, and when he called the emergency maintenance line, the worker seemed confused and mentioned that the board ordered the locks changed on the non-compliant units, leaving Marcus standing in the hallway with his luggage locked out of the property he owned. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. If you're finding value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you've ever experienced a similar HOA or neighborhood situation, feel free to share your story in the comments. Marcus felt a surge of anger unlike anything he'd experienced before, but he forced himself to stay calm, documented everything with photos and videos, and immediately called Jennifer, who told him to go to a hotel and that she'd handle this first thing Monday morning because what the HOA had done was not just a violation of his rights but potentially criminal. That weekend felt like the longest of Marcus's life as he stayed in an overpriced hotel room watching the ocean he couldn't access while paying a mortgage on a property he was locked out of. But Jennifer was true to her word and Monday morning filed an emergency motion for immediate access, and a temporary restraining order against the HOA and Patricia Drummond personally. The hearing happened within 72 hours, and Marcus watched as Jennifer methodically presented evidence of the illegal lock change, the unenforceable policy, the improper board meeting, and the threatening communications, while the HOA's attorney, clearly unprepared and possibly not fully informed by his clients, stammered through weak justifications about community standards and voluntary cooperation. The judge's patience visibly wore thin as he listened to the HOA's arguments, and when Patricia tried to interject from the gallery about freeloaders who don't contribute to community spirit, the judge actually stopped the proceedings to sternly remind her that property ownership comes with rights that cannot be arbitrarily stripped away by board members who disagree with how those properties are used. The ruling came swiftly and decisively. Marcus was to be given immediate access to his property, the HOA was ordered to pay his legal fees, and a temporary restraining order was issued preventing the board from taking any retaliatory action while a full investigation into their practices proceeded. Marcus thought this would humble the board into backing down, but when he returned to his condo that afternoon with a locksmith and the court order, he found Patricia and 2 other board members waiting in the hallway, and Patricia actually smiled as she said the locks would be changed as soon as the board reviews the order with our attorney, forcing Marcus to call the police to enforce a court order that couldn't have been clearer. The officer who responded seemed familiar with Patricia, addressing her by name with a weary tone that suggested this wasn't her first encounter with law enforcement over HOA disputes, and he bluntly told her that interfering with a court order could result in contempt charges and possible arrest, finally motivating her to produce the new keys with a venomous look that promised this wasn't over. Over the next few weeks, Marcus experienced what Jennifer called a textbook retaliation campaign. He received violation notices for minor issues that other owners were never cited for, such as his doormat being non-approved colors, his beach chair being stored on his balcony improperly, and his car allegedly being parked 6 inches over the line in his assigned spot, each violation carrying a $100 fine that Jennifer immediately contested. But Marcus also started hearing from other owners who had been quietly suffering under Patricia's reign, including a retired couple who had been fined thousands of dollars for planting flowers the board deemed non-native species, and a young family threatened with foreclosure over disputes about their children's sidewalk chalk drawings. Jennifer advised Marcus to document everything and consider filing a broader lawsuit, but Marcus hesitated because he just wanted to enjoy his property in peace, not become the face of an HOA rebellion, until he received the letter that changed everything. The letter, sent via certified mail, informed Marcus that the board had voted to levy a $15,000 special assessment on his unit specifically for excessive legal costs incurred due to owner hostility, and when Marcus showed this to Jennifer, she actually laughed and said Patricia had finally given them the smoking gun they needed for a harassment and targeted discrimination claim. The lawsuit Marcus filed wasn't just about his rights anymore. It included declarations from 7 other homeowners detailing Patricia's pattern of selective enforcement, financial mismanagement, and abuse of authority, and it requested not only damages but also a court-ordered election for new board members and a forensic audit of HOA finances. The discovery process revealed stunning information. Patricia had been awarding maintenance contracts to her brother-in-law's company at rates 30% above market value. The community improvements, funded by the rental pool proposal, were actually renovations to the clubhouse that only board members and their friends regularly used. And there were over $40,000 in unexplained expenses that Patricia classified as administrative costs, with no supporting documentation. As word spread through the community about the lawsuit findings, more homeowners came forward with their own stories, and what started as Marcus defending his right to control his own property became a movement to restore accountability and transparency to Seaside Haven's governance. The case never went to trial because the HOA's insurance company, facing overwhelming evidence of board misconduct and potential personal liability for Patricia and other board members, pushed for settlement, and the final agreement included Marcus receiving $75,000 in damages and legal fees, the immediate resignation of Patricia and 2 other board members, a court-supervised election for new leadership, and mandatory governance training for all future board members. Patricia's parting shot was a bitter email to all residents claiming she was the victim of a conspiracy by owners who didn't understand the sacrifices required for community leadership. But her words fell flat when the forensic audit revealed she had been reimbursing herself for personal expenses including spa visits, restaurant meals, and even a vacation to Hawaii, all categorized as community business, expenses totaling over $18,000. The new board, elected by the highest voter turnout in Seaside Haven's history, immediately repealed the community rental pool policy, implemented transparent budgeting with quarterly reports, and established an ombudsman system for owners to report concerns without fear of retaliation, transforming the community from a place of anxiety and arbitrary enforcement into what the original developers had envisioned, a peaceful coastal retreat where owners could actually enjoy their investments. Marcus still visits his condo regularly, and he's even made genuine friends among neighbors who appreciate that he stood up when others were too afraid. And while he sometimes thinks about the stress and expense of those months fighting the HOA, he knows that protecting his rights protected everyone else's rights too. And that's worth more than any sunset view. Though he has to admit the sunsets are pretty spectacular. If Marcus Chen's battle to protect his property rights against an overreaching HOA taught you something about the importance of understanding your legal protections as a homeowner, please hit that like button right now. Every like helps us reach more property owners who need to hear these stories before they face similar abuse. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we share new HOA and property rights stories every week that could save you from falling victim to board overreach. This story shows why documentation, knowing your CC and RS, and getting legal counsel early matters when dealing with aggressive HOA leadership, and your support through likes and subscriptions helps us continue bringing you these real-world lessons about protecting your home and investment. Take just 2 seconds to like and subscribe before you go. We appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.